guys, I am Paluki, a moderator here at the Pokemon Champions League, the PCL, and today what we're going to be talking about is how the PCL does its calculations and its ranking systems for both divisional and overall, how playoffs are decided, all of that. I know it's not the most exciting video, it's not a team builder, it's not a championship battle by a long shot, but I do encourage all of you to watch this because it's very important in answering questions that we get very commonly. How are these things decided, right? How do we calculate who drops from Origins down to Generations? How do we decide where teams are seated in the playoffs? This video will be the de facto explanation for how all of this is done. I want to stress that the mod staff, we have debated, we have discussed and deliberated, all the D words, about every single piece of this rules, rankings, and calculation system. To the point where we've had several votes over the past few weeks. And this should be the definitive system moving forward. So what I hope is that this video acts as a guidepost for those of you who need to refer to the rules and updating the standings in the future, maybe future mods who are brought into the PCL. Use this as an explanation guide for how everything in the calculation system is done. Call me Math Guru, I'm going to teach it all to you. I didn't mean to rhyme there. That sounded super cheesy. Let's move on. So, we're going to talk about three things in this video here. First is the divisional rankings, the basics. Win-loss records, head-to-heads, differentials. The bread and butter of calculations that I think all of us already know, at least in some respects. But there are some caveats. Very important caveats that can only be answered with some advanced methods in arithmetic. Tiebreakers, and the solution to those where there are multiple teams with the same record, meaning 3 or more, which is called the comparative percentage win analysis. We're going to get into that, and I'm going to explain it as concisely and clearly as possible, but also as thoroughly as possible. So I apologize if I take way too long on this, like I always do for everything. Next, we're going to be talking about the playoff picture. How do you qualify? 1, leading divisions and wildcards, of course, as we always know. And then, where are you seated in the playoffs? Something that a lot of people don't totally understand. Even I didn't totally understand before looking into the rules for this video and discussing it with the mod team. And finally, probably the most contentious topic in this video, and the thing that is most subject to change in the future, but I'm kind of hoping doesn't, is rising to Origins and falling from Origins. The rise and fall. As many of you know, the PCL is consisted of 2 leagues, a majors league called Origins and a minors league called Generations. And each season, between seasons, 4 teams fall from Origins and 4 teams rise from Generations. So how are those teams determined? It is a calculation that is distinct and unique from the divisional rankings. It is an overall rankings calculation. I want to stress they are different. So it's not just the people who are at the bottom of the divisions. I want to say that at the outset. So we're going to look at that last and sort of use the playoff picture as the palate cleanser in the middle. So first, let's get into the basics. The most basic concept in this is the standard ranking rule. I will refer to this as the standard rule throughout the video. It's something that you're going to want to know as well as possible before asking questions about how this is done, because it answers most questions for you. The most basic concept is the first statement here. Teams are ranked by record first. If you have 6 and 5 and your friend is 5 and 6, you know that you're above them. Then head-to-head. If you have the same win-loss record, say both 5 and 5, have you played each other? If you have and you won, then you're above them. If you haven't, then we move on to the third question, which is differential. Whoever has the higher differential takes the lead there. As you'll see later in this video, by the end of the season, differential's almost never used in calculations because head-to-head kind of decides all of them. So, if multiple teams share the same record, you've got 6 teams that all have 5 and 6, like it's true at the end of the 3rd season of the PCL here right now as this is being recorded, then what is done is a comparative percentage win analysis. That's what's calculated to determine where those teams are ranked within their group of 6 or 3 or 4 or what have you. Then, by some unlikely scenario, if 2 or more teams tie on percentage wins on the CPWA, then differential breaks the tie. And then an even more unlikely scenario, if all the stars in the universe align and somehow it occurs that win-loss records are the same between two teams, plus CPWA is the same between two teams, plus differential is the same between two teams, then we disband the league and we all decide to never play Pokemon again. Or, everyone stays calm, nobody riots, and as a mod team, we run these teams through the eye test. We watch their videos, or we elect a special committee to watch the videos to determine who should be ranked above whom. Again, very statistically unlikely, but we need to account for all scenarios. So if worst comes to worst, and that is definitely worst, we'll have a mod vote. But it is very unlikely, so let's move on to the real basics of divisional standings. Here you see on the right what you might traditionally see in the PCL rankings and standings tab in the Google Sheets doc that we update throughout the season, and particularly at the end of the season, when we're moving into playoffs. Now this is the one that is borrowed from Season 3 of the PCL, and I've edited rankings, standings, differential a little bit to help explain the math through more clear examples. So if I've adjusted your record, and totally didn't do it out of spite, unless I definitely did do it out of spite in some cases, I'm kidding. But am I? So let's take a look at Red Division first, because it's actually a very good example of how we calculate the basics, right? Black Viper is at the top of Red. The OU dropouts there, OUD, with 6 and 5. No one can reach him. He's at 6 and 5, top record at the top. Brian, no one can reach as well. Down low with 3 and 8. Excuse me. Whew. In the middle, we've got Lovecraft and Cradling, who have the exact same differential, 5 and 6. So how do we determine as between them who's ranked above whom? First, threshold determination. Have they played each other? Now here I know we have 11 games because the records are all 6 and 5 and 8 and 3 and 9 and 2. So they've played each other because they're in the same division. But let's say we're in the middle of the season and they haven't played each other. If they haven't played each other, there is no head-to-head to determine, so we move on to differential. In that case, Cradley with +6 differential would be above Lovecraft with 0 differential. But we see that that's not the case here, right? So what must have happened is Lovecraft and Cradley played each other. Lovecraft won that game, so he is ranked above Cradley in a head-to-head. He's said to have head-to-head advantage over Cradley. So now we have Viper, Lovecraft, Cradley, and Brian. Those are the basics. That is the most basic way of calculating this entire process. So let's move now into more advanced methods. As I mentioned before, there's some situations that are not easily calculable without a little bit of math and arithmetic, right? So let's look at Silver for a really good explanation for this. Silver Division down at the bottom. Crow is sitting at the top, sweet and pretty, with a 7 and 4 differential. Well done. It's probably because you drafted Volcarona. I'm not biased at all, I swear. Paluki, yours truly, Fury, and Yeesh are all at the bottom with 5 and 6. Now, this isn't as easy as a calculation, as you can tell, as between Lovecraft and Cradle. That was 2 teams, so head-to-head is easy. Who won? We just do this. Now we've got 3 teams. Where do we fit everyone? You could imagine a scenario in which I beat Fury, Fury beat Yeesh, and Yeesh beat me. In that case, we move on to differential, because no one has a clear head-to-head win. But maybe there's a scenario in which I beat Fury and Yeesh, and Fury and Yeesh haven't played each other yet. Or Fury beat Yeesh. There's a lot of different situations that could occur here. So what we're going to do in the advanced methods section here is look at an example with no names, because I don't want to upset anybody. So we've got Coach 1, Coach 2, and Coach 3. Sad Coach 3. Coach 1 beat Coach 3 and lost to Coach 2. So we say that Coach 1 has a comparative win percentage, or comparative percentage win rate, or whatever terms you want to use, a percentage of 1/2, which is 50%, because he won 1 game out of 2 games played in this subset, right? So again, this example is coaches 1, 2, and 3 all have the same win-loss record, and we're trying to determine where they're ranked amongst each other. Now, importantly, in this situation in Silver, by the end of the season, they're in the same division, so they'll all play each other. But I will note, don't think that this is all for naught, because in the overall rankings, where not everyone plays each other within a league, sometimes we can have examples like Coach number 2 here, where he beats Coach number 3 but doesn't play Coach number 1. So what do? We can't give him 1 win out of 2, though there are 2 possible wins. That would penalize him for not having played coach number 1. And we can't penalize a team for simply being a victim of the schedule. That's unfair. So how do we resolve this? Comparative percentage win analysis. That's the key there. That's your blank, right? So he won 1 game, but he only played 1 game in this subset of head-to-head coaches. So he has a 1-to-1, which is 100%. Good job, coach 2. And sad, coach 3. Won none of the games here. Lost to both coach 1 and coach 2. Comparative percentage of 0/2, which is effectively big old goose egg, 0%. So what's the result? The rank is coach 2, then coach 1, then coach 3. Coach 2 is 100%, coach 1 is 50%, coach 3 is 0%. Head-to-head, resolved. Very, very easy. And again, the rationale for this, I want to stress, is for avoiding penalizing teams that can't control their schedule. We don't want to penalize coach 2 for not having played coach 1. That would be an inequitable system. That would be unfair. We want, as well as possible, we want to avoid unfair systems. Of course, I think everyone's on the same page for that. And this also mathematically equalizes the chance of a high or low rank. So if you happen to only play 2 teams out of a group of 6 that all have head-to-head, if you beat both of those teams of a similar rank are the best analog we can find for the rest of them. So we wouldn't say that if you beat 2 teams and didn't play the other 4, that you're the same as another team that played all 6 and only beat 2 and lost to 4 of them. That's not okay. So what we do is the CPWA, the comparative percentage win analysis. And this is the analysis I just explained. So now that we understand divisional rankings and how head-to-heads are calculated and complex measures of advanced calculations, let's talk about the playoff picture. That's probably the most exciting part of this, right? How does one qualify for the playoffs and win the cup? Or whatever it is we have. The yellow title on Discord. There's 2 ways to get into the playoffs. You can lead your division, or you can qualify for a wildcard position. By now, most of us probably know what this is, but I'm going to go through it very quickly. As you can see in the example here, Viper is at the top of his division with 6-5. He is automatically qualifying for playoffs. He leads his division. In the blue division, Hassam leads with 9-2. Again, automatically qualifying. Wildcard position is those next teams that have the best rank overall in the conference, in the Kanto conference. Those here are actually both from the blue division. Now note, importantly, they don't have to be one from red and one from blue. Brendan and Gliscor have 8-3 and 6-5 respectively, which are higher records than anyone else in the entire conference. So they get the wild card spots. Okay? Now, you can imagine a scenario in which Gliscor was actually 5-6, tied with Slife, Lovecraft, and Cradley. What do we do in that example? We do a comparative percentage win analysis. We put them all together in a subgroup head-to-head. We determine their percentage win success rate as between each other, and we put the top one on top, and that's the one who gets the wildcard position. That's the best way to do it. That CPWA is a standard rule that exists across the entire system. It should be known and loved, and everyone's going to get it in their heads. Awesome. So, moving on. How do we seed playoffs? Now that we know that 4 teams, and a particular 4 teams are going to go into playoffs, who plays whom? So, I'll remind you of what we've got going on here. Actually, let's take a look back here. We've got Black Viper, Hassam, Brendan, and Gliscor. Let's remember those. So the first consideration is that qualifying playoff coaches are seeded within their conferences. This is something we discussed ad nauseum again in the mod chat. We talked about doing a 1 versus 8 system. We talked about doing a cross-conference playoff. In the end, the simplest and most equitable system that we can think of is a inter-conference or it's a within-conference playoff. People in Kanto battle it out, people in Johto battle it out, respectively, in their own conferences, and then the winner, therefore champion and representative of Kanto, plays in the finals against the winner, champion, representative of Johto, and we have a final battle in Origins, which is always exciting. So, conference hype galore. The first 2 seeds within the conference are reserved for division champions. So to go back to this example here, Hassam and Viper are the first 2 seeds. and they're determined rank by the standard rule. Again, the standard rule that I mentioned early in the video. So first we ask win-loss record. Hassam is 9-2 and Viper is 6-5. So Hassam is the first seed and Viper is the second seed. Then third and fourth seeds are reserved, of course, for wild cards, and they're determined again by the standard rule. Brendan is 8-3, Gliscor is 6-5. So Brendan is third seed, Gliscor is fourth seed. If they had the same record, again, standard rule. Win-loss is the same. We do head-to-head. If they didn't play each other, then we move, which they wouldn't in this scenario because they're in the same conference. They all play each other. But if they hadn't played each other for some crazy reason, then we move on to differential. Typical standard rule. So that's seeding. Now that we understand the playoff system as a whole, we're going to move on to probably the most controversial and contentious issue in this rules video, and really the reason the rules video is being put out is the rising and falling. And first we're going to talk about rising to origins, because this is a system that was changed and will be taking effect in season 4. And that is the 2-2 system. The 2-2 system is this: those who reach the Generations Finals Championship, so the winner of Hoenn and the winner of Sinnoh, will automatically rise to Origins for the next season. It doesn't matter who wins the playoffs, who wins the championship in Generations, both will automatically rise. And whereas the past system, the system we're using right now in Season 3, is all the semi-finalists, we thought, you know, that might not be the most equitable system, because it really favors teams who win one game, or more so, it really detriments teams who lose one game. You can go undefeated in the regular season, and then you lose round 1. No one in their right mind is going to say, well, yeah, he didn't really deserve to move up to Origins. So what's the best way to get around that? Reward teams who win just like crazy during the regular season and win super consistently, but also reward teams, as we have been, that win when the pressure is on, when they need to win. When the pressure is on, the finalists make it to the finals. But some teams lose that one sad game, but they are amazing battlers. So what we do, the 2 finalists automatically move up, like I mentioned, and then the next 2 highest records in the entire conference will then, in the entire league, will then move up. And this depends on overall rankings. Now, overall rankings are determined by the standard rule. Win-loss records, then head-to-head, then the CPWA if need be, and then differential if the CPWA is all-time, right? So, the next best record caveat is something that should be mentioned here. I can explain it a little bit better in an example, but basically, if the top 1/2 records are in the finals, then of course we're not just gonna raise them twice. That wouldn't make sense. So we move down 1, right? The next best record that is not the 2 in the finals will be moving up. So let's look at an example, right? Here we've got Seattle Supersonics and the Samson Shuppet. Let's say they're the Generations League finalists. They're the ones who are representing their conferences, moving up to the last game of the playoffs. That means they're automatically moving up to Origins. They're rising up to Origins. Now, looking back at our list here, Jimmy with the Munster Mimikyus is actually at the top. So that means he would be slated next to rise to Origins, having the best record. And then normally Sam with the Seattle Supersonics would be the next best record after Jimmy, being the last to move up. But he's already in the finals, so we move below that to Nate with the Washington Whoopers, and we have our 4 that move up. Easy as can be. That is the simplest system. I'm sure that everyone understands that. Now we're going to talk about falling from Origins. Falling from Origins is actually a little bit simpler, because all we do is we take the bottom 4 overall in the rankings. Again, the overall rankings are determined by the standard rule. Win-loss records, head-to-head, win percentage, CPWA, the comparative percentage win analysis, and then differential if need be, and then a crazy mod vote if need be, but it's probably never going to happen, right? So we've got our rankings, in our rankings here, you can see the bottom 4 are actually who do move down from Season 3 to Season 4 in the PCL. Cradley, Yeesh, Brian, and JM. As you can see, JM and Brian are obvious. Their records are low. The standard rule is fulfilled immediately. Cradley and Yeesh was a little bit harder to determine because now I've changed the rankings here a little bit, and you can see like some things I didn't fix. Like I have Fury as 5 and 6, and he should actually be 6 and 5. The point is, there were a bunch of teams at the end of Season 3 that were all 5 and 6. So what did we do to determine who moves down? Comparative percentage win analysis. This example has 3 teams, but we had 6 teams that all had 5 and 6. So we did a CPWA, and we determined which teams moved down. And the result was the Northern Mankeys with the lowest record, the Houston Heatmore with the second lowest record, the Snow Point Sneasels, who lost the CPWA calculation with a tiebreaker at 5 and 6, and then the Denver Flare Bliss, who did as well. Those are all the rules. We have covered a lot in this video. I mean, we have done divisional rankings, basics, advanced methods with the comparative percentage win analysis, how to qualify and seed for playoffs, and rising and falling to and from Origins. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And I can help explain anything in this. On behalf of the mod staff and the entire PCL and our admin Cradley, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this 20-minute video. Holy cow, I am sorry. I hope that it was helpful, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.